All right, cheers everyone and welcome back for another round of Sip and Talk. Before we dive in, I got to tell you about this ridiculous thing that happened to me at the grocery store yesterday. So I'm in the checkout line, and this guy in front of me has like 20 coupons, and each one is expiring that day. And the cashier is like sweating, trying to scan them all before midnight strikes. It was a whole ordeal. Anyway, speaking of intense situations, you guys really seem to enjoy our last deep dive on that whole nature versus nurture debate. Who knew genes and environment could be so dramatic, right?
It seems like our listeners love a good philosophical brawl. You all are thirsty for knowledge, and we're here to serve it up sip and talk style.
So buckle up, Buttercup, because today we're tackling another biggie, free will versus determinism. And let me tell you, we both have some very strong opinions on this one.
Oh, absolutely. We might need a referee for this one. Think
Yeah.
philosophical boxing match, but with less punching and more witty banter.
Deal. All right, let's set the stage. What exactly are we wrestling with here?
Well, on one side of the ring, we have determinism. The idea is basically that everything that happens has like a chain reaction. One thing leads to another and another and another, kind of like dominoes falling.
Okay, I see where you're going with this, but wait a second. Are you saying our lives are just one big predetermined domino effect? Like we have no say in the matter? No way. What about choice? What about free will? Every day we make decisions big and small. Coffee or tea workout, or Netflix binge pineapple on pizza, or absolutely no pineapple on pizza.
The eternal struggle.
Exactly. These are choices, my friend, choices. We are the captains of our own ships, steering through the wild seas of life.
Okay, I get it. It feels like we're making choices. But what if that feeling is an illusion? What if those so-called choices are actually influenced by factors beyond our control, things we're not even aware of? Maybe our conscious mind is just along for the ride.
All right, I'm listening. What kind of hidden puppet masters are we talking about here?
Well, let's take a trip down history lane. Ancient civilizations were big on fate. The Babylonians, for example, believed in gods who controlled everything. Every victory, every heartbreak, even your weird uncle's questionable fashion choices.
So you're saying my disastrous dating history is Zeus's fault? Convenient.
Maybe. But here's where it gets really interesting. Modern science is starting to paint a similar picture, though maybe without the lightning bolts and togas. Think about genetics. Our genes predispose us to certain traits, behaviors, maybe even decisions.
Hold on. Are you saying my love of spicy food is written in my DNA? That's a bit of a stretch, don't you think?
Not necessarily a stretch. Think about it. A gene for risk-taking might make someone more likely to, say, skydive or invest in a questionable cryptocurrency, but they might think they're just being adventurous or entrepreneurial.
Okay, I see what you're getting at.
Yeah.
But even if our genes nudge us in certain directions, doesn't it still feel like we're the ones making the final call? That feeling of choice, that sense of agency has to count for something, right?
You're right. That feeling is definitely a key part of the human experience. Psychologists even have a name for it, sense of agency. It's that subjective feeling of being in control. And even if it is an illusion, it shapes our lives, our actions, our entire sense of self.
Exactly. If I believe I can choose to eat a salad instead of that entire chocolate cake, doesn't that make me more likely to actually do it? That feeling of control, even if it's a mind trick, can be incredibly motivating. It helps us set goals, make plans, and strive for something better.
I agree, it's a powerful force. But here's where things get tricky. What about responsibility? If everything's predetermined, can we really hold people accountable for their actions? What happens to our justice system, our entire moral code? It's like saying, my genes made me do it, is a get-out-of-jail-free card.
Now, hold on. Are you suggesting we let criminals walk free because their genes made them do it? That's a slippery slope, my friend.
It definitely raises some tough questions. If someone is essentially programmed by their genes and their environment to commit a crime, can we truly blame them? Where does free will fit into that equation?
I hear you, but there's another side to this coin. Even if everything is predetermined, doesn't holding people accountable still help create a better society? Let's say you're destined to speed right, but getting that speeding ticket, even though it was fate, might make you think twice next time. It's still a deterrent.
That's a really good point. It's like even if my terrible parallel parking skills are predetermined, that parking ticket still motivates me to maybe work on those skills.
Exactly. The consequences still shape our behavior, regardless of whether the actions were fated or not. And, this whole discussion makes me think about different cultural perspectives on fate. It's a big deal in Eastern philosophies and religions. Take Hinduism, for example. Their concept of karma, where your past actions influence your present reality, is pretty mind-blowing.
Ooh, karma. Yeah, that one always makes you think twice before cutting someone off in traffic. Right. Makes you realize we're all connected in this cosmic dance. But, even in traditions that emphasize fate, the idea isn't to just passively accept whatever comes your way. It's about understanding the forces at play and making more informed choices. It's about recognizing patterns, learning from mistakes, and ultimately taking responsibility for our actions.
So it's not about being a puppet, but about becoming aware of the strings, maybe even learning how to manipulate them a bit.
Exactly. It's like, okay, maybe I'm predisposed to anxiety because of my genes or my upbringing, but that doesn't mean I'm doomed to a life of panic attacks. I can learn coping mechanisms, practice mindfulness, and ultimately choose how I respond to those anxious thoughts.
So we're not just talking about actions being predetermined, but thoughts and beliefs as well.
Absolutely. Remember those higher order desires we mentioned earlier? Like choosing the salad over the cake because you want to be healthy. It's like having two little voices in your head, one screaming, "Cake now!" and the other one a bit more sensible saying, "Think about your health goals." Which voice wins often depends on how aware and mindful we are.
It's like that angel and devil on your shoulder thing, except it's all happening inside your brain. But, this brings up another interesting point. If our thoughts and desires can be shaped by things beyond our control, what does that mean for things like addiction?
That's a really complex issue and one that deserves its own deep dive. But to touch on it briefly, addiction is a powerful example of how biology, psychology, and environment can intertwine to influence our choices. There's a genetic component, but also a huge element of learned behavior and environmental triggers.
So it's not just about willpower, right? Like someone struggling with addiction isn't just weak-willed. They might be fighting against some pretty powerful biological and psychological forces.
Exactly. It's about understanding the complexity of the issue and offering support and resources rather than judgment. And, this brings us back to that idea of responsibility. Even if we're influenced by factors beyond our control, we still have a responsibility to make the best choices we can, to seek help when we need it, and to strive for growth and healing.
So it's about taking ownership of our lives, even within the constraints of whatever predetermined factors might be at play.
Precisely. It's like saying, okay, maybe I have a genetic predisposition to this or that, but I'm not going to let it define me. I'm going to make conscious choices that align with my values and goals.
I love that. It's like taking those dominoes everyone keeps talking about and building something amazing with them instead of just watching them fall.
Yes. It's about becoming the architect of our own lives, even if we didn't get to choose the building blocks. And you know what? This whole conversation reminds me of those Choose Your Own Adventure books we used to read as kids. We might have different paths laid out before us, but we still get to make the choices that lead us down those paths.
That's a great analogy. And it's not always about making the right or wrong choices, but about making choices that are aligned with our values, our goals, and our deepest desires.
And sometimes those wrong choices can be the most valuable learning experiences, right? Think about all the times you took a chance, stumbled, and came out stronger on the other side. It's like, okay, maybe that wasn't the best decision, but I learned from it, and I'm going to do better next time.
That reminds me of that time I tried to bake a birthday cake without actually looking at a recipe. Let's just say it ended up looking more like a science experiment gone wrong than a dessert. But hey, at least I learned a valuable lesson. Always follow the instructions.
We've all been there. But you know what? Even those baking disasters, those awkward first dates, those questionable career choices, they all shape who we are and how we move through the world.
It's like if we could rewind and replay our lives, knowing what we know now, would we make all the same choices? Or would we choose a different flavor of cake, a different career path, a different adventure altogether?
That's a fascinating question, and I think the answer is different for everyone. Some people might embrace the idea that everything happens for a reason and wouldn't change a thing. Others might yearn for a do-over, a chance to rewrite their story. But ultimately, the beauty of life is that it's a journey full of unexpected twists and turns.
And maybe, just maybe, it's the combination of those predetermined factors and our free will, those seemingly opposing forces, that makes the journey so captivating.
Absolutely. It's like a dance between fate and choice, a delicate interplay of forces that shapes our unique and unpredictable paths. And you know what? No matter where we land on this whole free will versus determinism spectrum, I think it's safe to say that the very act of contemplating these big questions, of exploring different perspectives and challenging our assumptions, is a testament to our human capacity for curiosity and growth.
Beautifully said. So are you ready for round 3 of this philosophical boxing match? I think I've got a few more jabs left in me.
Bring it on.
I don't know about you, but all this talk about fate and choice, it's making me thirsty.
Well, that's what we're here for.
Cheers to that. But I just want to give another shout out to Micky from Mickytolife. His channel is a treasure trove of inspiration, and he's a huge Sip and Talk fan.
Absolutely. Make sure to check him out and maybe even share your awesome podcast intro with him once you've created it.
So where do we land on this whole free will versus determinism debate? Any final takeaways for our lovely listeners?
Honestly, I think it's safe to say there's no clear winner. It's a paradox, a mystery that humans have been grappling with for centuries.
Well, if the great philosophers couldn't figure it out, I guess we're off the hook.
Probably. But you know what? It's not about finding the right answer. It's about the exploration, the journey of questioning and expanding our understanding.
Totally. It's like that saying, the unexamined life is not worth living. And hey, even if all our big life choices are predetermined, we can still choose what we sip on while we ponder these existential mysteries.
Here.
Speaking of sipping, I heard you discovered a fantastic new cocktail bar downtown.
Oh, it's incredible. They have these amazing craft cocktails, all made with fresh local ingredients. It's like a taste of pure, unadulterated free will.
Okay, now you're just messing with me. But seriously, folks, if you're looking for some fun travel and drink reviews, be sure to check out the YouTube channel Mickytolife.
Those guys are great, always entertaining.
All right, so to wrap up this epic philosophical adventure, any final words of wisdom for our listeners out there navigating the twists and turns of fate and choice?
Well, I think regardless of whether it's true blue free will or cleverly disguised determinism, the human experience of choice feels real. And that matters.
Beautifully put. And it makes you wonder, if we could rewind and replay life with all the same circumstances, all the same influences, would we make the same choices? Something to ponder over your next sip, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. It's a question that might not have a definitive answer, but it's certainly worth exploring.
Well, folks, that's it for our deep dive today. Thanks for joining us on this wild ride through the world of free will versus determinism. Until next time, cheers to embracing the mystery and making the most of every choice we get to make.